Hello, friends. Yes, it is I, shintigercurl, that dude in the straw hat, bringing you yet another review. Not a review, but just a video. For those of you who don't know, this will be my first video as a member of the Absolution Network, thanks to my friend Mr. Mattis Lionheart, aka CM Jew. CM Jew, CM Jew. Thank you. So, I was thinking about it. What would be a perfect first video for my debut on this illustrious website? Well, a lot of guys were doing wrestling stuff, and a lot has happened this week, so just me talking about wrestling isn't going to be enough. So I figured I decided to do a top list. Everyone's doing top lists nowadays, and I've already done a top list on my YouTube page, my top 12 favorite anime fight scenes of all time. Go ahead and check it out. It's on YouTube already. So, where to go from here? But before I start, I will let you know that because of the limitations of my hardware, I'm unable to put any kind of graphics or edit sound or music without corrupting my video. So, unfortunately, this is what you're going to have to deal with until at least I get a better computer. So, let's get right to it. Villains. You can't have a good story without villains. They are the meat of the story. They are the obstacle that the hero must overcome in order to achieve his or her goals. But what makes a good villain? Should they be powerful? Should they be exciting? Should they be irredeemably evil? Should they have an honor code? What exactly makes a great villain? Well, I have here my top 12 favorite anime villains of all time. Just to let you know, this list is completely opinionated. It's my own opinion, not to mention that these are only from animes that I have actually watched. So if there's a villain out there that you know that I don't know, too bad, you're probably not going to see it on this list. Also, I am reserving the right to use one villain per franchise. So, shall we begin? Moving on, we go to shintigercurl's top 12 favorite anime villains. Why 12? Because fuck you, that's why. Number 12, Vicious from Cowboy Bebop. What can you say about Cowboy Bebop? It's considered one of the most beloved and revered anime of its time. It was part of the Adult Swim block when anime in the U.S. was just getting its footing, and Adult Swim was one of the best places to find new and popular anime. And Cowboy Bebop was no exception. Even though it was only 20-some-odd episodes long, it crammed in enough action, drama, suspense, and character development to fill out hundreds of episodes. So, what is a good villain from this show? They had a lot of memorable villains, but let's go for one who had more overarching significance. Vicious. Vicious is Spike Spiegel's old friend from his time as a part of the member of the Red Dragon Syndicate of Mars. He and Vicious both love the same woman, Julia, and he even faked his own death to be with her. But it still didn't keep him out of trouble with Vicious. Now, Spike is normally a very laid-back sort of guy, never taking anything seriously, never caring whether or not he lived or died. But when it came to Vicious, he was deadly serious, and with good reason. Vicious was, well, it's hard to describe him. He was an antisocial thing. A guy who only cared about personal power. He only cared about his rise within the syndicate itself. He saw the elders of the syndicate as old dinosaurs who had lost their fangs, who had basically lost all their strength. They even knew that Vicious had plans for them, stating that a snake cannot kill an elephant. But he replied, a snake with the right venom and strikes at the elephant can kill it from within. Vicious was the perfect opposite of Spike, right down to that infamous egret that he had on his shoulder and his katana, which was more than a match for Spike's pistol that he used often. The two of them came to blows only a few times, 3 times within the series proper, 2 fights and one very impressive dogfight above the skies of some small moon that I can't remember of. It was always personal. The two of them just going at it one at a time, and Vicious was, well, what his name was. He was a vicious opponent to deal with. And only someone as good as Spike could ever hope to match up against him. In the end, the two of them ended up killing each other. But Vicious remains one of the more indelible images and one of the more indelible villains from an otherwise fantastic series. Vicious. He is what he is. Number 11. Makoto Shishio from Rurouni Kenshin. Ah, yes, Rurouni Kenshin, the story of an oddball guy who used to kill people and now has a reverse blade sword. There were quite a few villains that were worthy of to be called the greatest, but none more so than Makoto Shishio, otherwise known as the Manslayer from the Shadows. He was the one responsible for killing all the secret enemies that the government wanted killed. But when he knew too much, they chose to burn him alive, hoping he'd take the secrets to his grave. Unfortunately for them, Shishio was not the type of guy to die easily. He lived. In fact, he got stronger after having burns over 99% of his body. I mean, the guy has to constantly stay in tubs because his body heat temperature will rise to an absurd degree. Even resting, his hands radiate a type of heat that you can feel in your soul. Shishio, despite his appearance of something of a samurai mummy, had a massive entire army known as the Jupongatana, an organization made up of old swordsmen and killers from all over Japan during the Meiji era. He had his mission: bring down the federal government and create a new one. His overall philosophy: if you are weak, you die. If you are strong, you live. And he sees the old Manslayer, Kenshin Hiruma, as very weak. The entire Kyoto arc was a fantastic arc that all built up to a series of death matches between Kenshin and his group and the Jupongatana, all culminating in a senses-shattering battle between two Manslayers, pitting the Manslayer of Light versus the Manslayer of the Shadows. Shishio was an impressive force to be reckoned with, and, well, he inspired loyalty out of his men, so much so that they pledged their own lives to his own dream. Even his woman gave her life for him, just so he could have an advantage in a fight with Kenshin. And he loved her for it. But in the end, he died bursting into flames because, well, the guy was pretty much burnt barbecue for the remainder of his life. And interesting enough, when he died, he and his associates ended up in hell. And he took over hell. That's ambition, you gotta admit that. Makoto Shishio. Even though you look like burnt bacon, you could still beast like nobody's business. Moving on. Number 10. Madara Uchiha. 1. Naruto. Ah, yes. A member of the fabled Uchiha clan. Just when you think in Naruto the Uchiha weren't wanked enough, getting powers upon powers, their simple Kekkei Genkai of the Sharingan jacked up to such absurd levels that they could literally rewrite reality on a whim. We're taken up to 11 with the introduction of Madara Uchiha. Madara is one of the 2 founding fathers of Konoha, alongside Hashirama, aka hashtag to the fans, the first Hokage. Even though he firmly believed that his way was the right way. So, even though he was ejected from the village, a pariah and an outsider to his own clan, it was only with the help of another Uchiha, Obito Uchiha that he began to put his machinations into play, the Moon's Eye plan, his plan to put the entire world into a mass genjutsu, where no one suffered, where all their dreams came true. I know it sounded like something out of a bad James Bond movie, but go with it. At first we thought that Obito was really Madara Uchiha since he used his name, but it was revealed that Madara was in fact dead, but only resurrected when Kabuto, using the Impure World Jutsu, resurrected him as a zombie. But instead of working for him, Madara was working on his own plans. He betrayed all those around him and became the Jinchuriki of the Jubi, the Ten Tails. Madara, needless to say, is a powerful sumbitch. He treats Kage-level fighters like they're beneath him. He drops meteors on armies. He solos entire groups of ninjas all by his lonesome with nothing more than basic hand-to-hand combat. The man is ninja on steroids. He considers even the current generation of Kages to be less than faithful, although he has something of a budding bromance with hashtag, always getting giddy over his appearances and comparing other ninjas to him. See, apparently, Guy Sensei is the only one who he deems to be worth any notice, but there's that. Not much I can really say. He's an Uchiha. What can you want? When in an entire series of wanked out powers, he's the wankiest. Good on you, Madara. Number 9, Bankotsu Inuyasha. I hate Inuyasha. I really, 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 really hate Inuyasha. Did I mention that I hate Inuyasha? I hated that show. From the on-again, off-again affair between Inuyasha, Kagome, and Kikyo, to the bland characters, to the lame storylines, I even hated Naraku. The guy was just too overtly evil. And there was not much I didn't like. There was not much for me to like about the show, other than Shishomaru. Shishomaru is boss, and I will go to my grave saying that. But there was one part that I actually liked. It was during one particular arc where Naraku got bitched up bad by Inuyasha and Shishomaru and fled to Mount Hakure, which was strangely enough a place where no demon can go. To protect him from his various enemies, which is pretty much every major character in the series, he resurrected the Band of Seven, a powerful mercenary group of warriors so strong that all the kings and shoguns in all of Japan banded together to beat them down and kill them because they got too strong. They were resurrected thanks to the power of the Shikon jewel shards that Naraku had given them. And their leader, I like, Bankotsu, the youngest but strongest member of the Band of Seven. A powerful and bloodthirsty warrior who is more childish than he seems. He looks upon all the members of the Bands of Seven as his own family. He wields Banryu, a massive halberd that takes 5 grown men to lift, and he can wield it one-handed. When he clashed with Inuyasha, he was perfectly matched with each other, and with each Shikon jewel shard he gained or shoved into his Banryu, the fights just got more intense, even at one point bringing Inuyasha and his whole group to their knees, thanks to the power of his Banryu. Now that guy I like. But also, he was something of an unrepentant guy. He wasn't so much evil as he was just fight hungry. He loved to kill. Demons, humans, didn't matter to him. He just wanted to kill and prove the strength of his group as well as himself. He didn't really care if he lived or died. He didn't care where he went, if he went to heaven or hell. He just wanted to kill. And I can respect that kind of honesty. I mean, he wasn't playing sides or worrying about jewel shards or doing back-assed plans like some people. Naraku! Oh, sorry, I got something stuck in my throat. What I meant to say was Naraku. Yeah, he was a better villain than Naraku. Even Inuyasha could respect him, even though he was an unrepentant murderer. At least he valued camaraderie and the bonds of friendship that he built with his unit. I can't watch Inuyasha to save my life, but I will watch the Band of Seven arc whenever it comes up. Because Banryu is boss. Enough said. Number 8. Light Yagami, aka Kira, from Death Note. Everyone's seen Death Note by now. It's one of the more talked about animes to come out of the last decade or so. Basically, its protagonist, if you want to call him that, is one of the more debated ones about whether or not he should be truly called a protagonist or antagonist. Light Yagami was a 16-year-old high school student, a brilliant genius upon geniuses who was bored, until he stumbled upon a magic notebook that could kill anyone as long as you have a face and a name. Turns out the book belonged to a death god known as Ryuk, and he dropped it into the real world simply because he was bored as well. Light decides to use the notebook to cleanse society of evil and to become the god of a new world. And he would start by murdering criminals, any that he would get in his way, any that would come his way, the ones that he saw on TV or ones he got from the files of his father, who was a police detective. As time passed, people began to refer to him as Kira, or the Japanese pronunciation of the word killer. And so the police tried to stop him, thus even going so far as to enlist the aid of a private detective known simply as L. And thus began a major game of cat and mouse between Kira and L. The first to discover the other's identity kills the other. This all seemed well and good. I mean, Light was he's just doing vigilante stuff, just killing criminals, until he stumbles on an FBI agent who was following him in the subway and kills him outright. This, for me, is when he crossed the line. He basically crossed the line from a vigilante into just a mass murderer. He went from not only just targeting criminals to pretty much anyone who got in his way. His ego fed with each new crime, and even culminating in killing L, or even members of the team that he worked closely with for more than a year, dedicated to catching Kira, people he knew personally, even going so far as to orchestrate his father's own death. Wow, that's cold-blooded. Light was constantly manipulating the strings of everyone around him so he could gain the advantage over everyone else. But by the time he dies in the end, he gets his comeuppance, broken and defeated, his resources gone, robbed of his death note, and all of his associates gone and abandoning him. He becomes a blubbering mass, truly a child with his ego broken, and he was left dying as Ryuk writes his name in the death note, killing him. Some may call him a vigilante, others may call him a murderer, but there is no doubt that Light Yagami was a villain to the end. Number 7, Blackbeard from One Piece. Again, as everyone knows, I am a big One Piece fan. I could create my own list. Excuse me? I could create my own list, top 12 list of the greatest villains in One Piece, and it still wouldn't be enough. Inichiro Oda has done a marvelous job of creating a vast world full of interesting characters. There are so many interesting villains that picking just one is impossible. I mean, from the goofy and comedic Buggy the Clown to the silent and vicious Rob Lucci, from the cold and calculating of Captain Kuro to the overwhelming racism of Horty Jones. In a series with a lot of great villains, how do you pick one? It was easier than I thought. That one villain was Marshall D. Teach, a former member of the Whitebeard Pirates, until he committed the cardinal sin of killing one of his own crewmates because he had a devil fruit that he wanted, leaving the crew, calling himself Blackbeard, and forming his own crew, the Blackbeard Pirates, a group so powerful that only 4 of them could ravage a country so greatly that its king flees for years. That's strength right there. We are more hinted about who Blackbeard is through interactions with Ace, who was actively hunting him. We don't even get a full view of the guy until during the Jaya arc, and we don't even realize it until after Luffy beats Bellamy in a one-on-one fight, and him and his crew are formally introduced. Even despite the fact that he has no bounty on his head, he is exceedingly dangerous. He isn't seen again until the very tail end of the Mass Water 7 arc, or the Enos Lobby arc, if you want to be specific, where he fights Ace on Baronero Island. The resulting fight would spark a war that would change the face of the One Piece world forever. He would then go on to take advantage of Luffy's mass prison break and Impel Down to recruit some of the most dangerous and downright villainous criminals the world has ever known, including one guy who was impossibly huge for his size. He and his crew then deal the death blow to the most powerful pirate in the world, and then steal his powers, making him the only character in One Piece to have 2 Devil Fruit powers. As for personality, he is something of a dark reflection of Monkey D. Luffy. He values friendship, but he will trample on anyone or use any means necessary to gain the power that he wants, to gain One Piece, and he has trampled on a lot of lives. He is dark, he's manipulative, patient, a firm believer of dreams, but willing to kill anyone who gets in his way, even people he so-called had great affection for, like Ace or Whitebeard, who he considered a father. Nevertheless, currently, Blackbeard is one of the 4 emperors of the New World, having a massive crew with 10 powerful captains at his beck and call, and actively hunting down Devil Fruit users to absorb their powers and increase his crew's already pertinent strength. It is more than likely that Blackbeard and his crew will be the final fight for Luffy and his crew. Whether it's going to be the end or the beginning, one thing can be for sure. Blackbeard is a dangerous mofo. Yeah. Where was I? Number 6. Father from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I liked the first Full Metal Alchemist anime, but looking back on it, it really put a sour taste in my mouth. I could see that there were parts that they skipped over, characterizations that didn't get fully fleshed out, and the ending game was terribly underwhelming for the stakes involved. And Dante sucked as a villain. She was just a selfish bitch with no real power, and he didn't get her proper comeuppance, only to get eaten by gluttony. That is until Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood came out, a more accurate depiction of the manga itself. I've already gushed over what I thought about the Promised Day arc. Look up my top 12 anime fights. I go on a lot about that thing. But none of it meant anything without the main antagonist, Father, an age-old homunculus as old as Edward and Alphonse's father, Hohenheim. He was a former homunculus who took on Hohenheim's form and wiped out an entire country. Now, him and his homunculuses have been forming this massive plan to basically absorb God. Yeah, that kind of beats Dante. I mean, she just wanted to live a couple of more years. He wanted to absorb God. Immortality, God. What can you say, man? Father was an intimidating presence to be sure. He didn't speak very much, he was very relaxed, but you could tell there was power in everything he did. Even his homunculuses were afraid of him, which for good reason. The guy was an absolute monster. And when he did gain his power, the first thing he did was create a fucking sun in his hands. Beat that, Dante! And the subsequent battle and beatdown of him was more satisfying than getting eaten by whatever happened to Dante. Father was powerful, dangerous, knowledgeable, and ultimately hungry for all things. Sorry, Dante, you really need to get off the rag and start being more like him. Father. Now, we're up into the top 5, folks. And these are the big ones. Number 5, Sensui, Yu Yu Hakusho. Yu Yu Hakusho is no stranger to weird and wacky villains. From the Toguro brothers to the 4 Saint Beasts, you had a lot of villains to choose from. But ironically, it wasn't a demon or anyone demonically empowered that would prove to be Yusuke Urameshi's greatest enemy. No, it would be a human. Not just any human, the former spirit detective. Shinobu Sensui was a tremendously talented spirit detective who was pretty much the golden boy of the spirit world. That is until he came upon a scene of humans murdering demons. Now, mind you, Sensui had a very distinct impression of right and wrong. Demons were evil, humans were good. That party fucked him all up, and his mind fractured into 7 different personalities. His main objective was to bring judgment to mankind by opening a portal directly to Demon World so that the demons would flood through and wipe out humanity in one big orgy of violence and depravity. He was not a masochist. He didn't do this out of a sense of evil. He felt like because of his time as a spirit detective killing demons that he never gave them a fair shake. He just killed them on sight. He felt like this was something he had to do. And there's nothing more dangerous than a villain with purpose. And his purpose was to bring about the end of mankind, even while watching his favorite television program. He was an intelligent opponent who knew the human psyche well enough to brainwash 6 other psychics to work for him by viewing the Chapter Black videotape. A video that's hours and hours long of the worst human atrocities for the last 2,000 years. It's said that watching only 10 minutes of it can drive you insane. And Shinobu Sensui watched it forward to back. What made Sensui such an interesting opponent is his several personalities, each one serving a different purpose for his plan. Minoru the orator, who could bring anyone to his side, to Kazuma the ruffian, a violent, vicious bastard who would kill babies just to hear them scream. But Shinobu himself is pure. So pure, in fact, that he mastered holy energy, an energy that gave him the strength to match wits with even the strongest demons of Demon World. He was an intelligent, suave, sophisticated, but remorseful enemy. You couldn't help but feel bad for him because of the things he went through, and you could kind of understand him a little bit. Hell, he's also one of the few openly gay villains. Yes, I'm talking about you, Mr. Mitsuki. I don't have a problem with it. In fact, it's one of my favorite gay couples, Mitsuki and Sensui. It's love right there. But Sensui still had a lasting impact on Yusuke Urameshi and his friends, questioning whether or not what they were doing was right, and would eventually lead Yusuke to journey to Demon World to find the answers he sought. And all because he messed with a guy with a Michael Jackson curly. Sensui. Number 4, Sasuke Aizen, Bleach. Ah, yes, in modern anime fandom, there is no one villain more revered, despised, loved, beloved, and all other mean and sedative adjectives than Sasuke Aizen. Think of villainy when you think of anime and manga, you think of Aizen. Formerly a captain of one of the 13 court guard squads, he was initially introduced as a kind, mild-mannered, soft-spoken captain who cared for his subordinates and cared for everyone around him, who was smart, but not too smart, powerful, but not too powerful. That is until he got, oh my God, shanked and crucified pretty much in front of everyone. Then people were like wondering, like, who could kill a captain? It wasn't until later on that we learned that not only was he alive, but he was actually a bastard. All the events that happened within the Soul Society arc were through his own machinations. He played everyone like a fiddle, and he got a Grammy for it. His machinations were such that people still talk about him today. He's one of the few anime characters who can pull off the legendary Xanatos Gambit. Yep, sir. He would eventually leave his meager beginnings behind as a Soul Reaper and become a leader in his own right, forming the Espada, with nothing but with Arrancar Hollows at his beck and call, a massive army to do his bidding. But don't think this guy's all brains. He's fucking strong. He curb stomped Ichigo with a finger. He was slapping around captains like wasn't no thing. And his Zanpakuto, Kyokusugetsu, had absolute hypnosis, which basically means he can control people anytime he wanted. Anytime he did something, he was like, gang up on me, bitch, please. What? You're using something to reverse my senses? Bitch, please. Ichigo Kurosaki, you think you can handle me just because you haven't seen my Shikai? Bitch, please. Yes, sir. It's a shame that in the end he devolved into a snarling, scroggy little guy, but his influence still remained. I mean, Renji trained himself up after the time skip to fight Aizen in case he ever broke out. And the guy, yeah, he's still alive. They just can't kill him. Unless they want to make him ridiculously strong again. It's a thing. But yeah, Sosuke Aizen. Bitch, please. Number 3. Frieza from Dragon Ball Z. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, shintigercurl, what about Cell and what about Majin Buu? They're way stronger than Frieza. No, you're not getting what I'm talking about. This is not just about strength. This is about overall personality and goals. Cell and Majin Buu were strong just because for strong's sake. They didn't have overarching goals aside from proving their strength over others. Frieza's goal was for total universal domination and immortality. And he was almost there. We were first introduced as Frieza was the leader of the planetary trade that wipes out planets' populations and sells the planets on the intergalactic black market. The guy who wiped out the Saiyan race with a finger, who personally killed Goku's father and bitch slapped Vegeta's father like a bitch. He turned Vegeta into a cold-blooded killer, all the while treating him like utter garbage. Frieza is it's just his personality as well. He is suave and cultured, but at the same time cold and bloodthirsty. He could be I could see him drinking a nice Merlot in one hand and snapping a baby's neck with the other. Frieza didn't need to yell or scream. You could tell from looking at him that he was power. That we got little glimpses of what he could truly is capable of, and it was frightening. I mean, Frieza was so intimidating. I had no idea how Goku could stand against someone so overwhelmingly strong. I mean, he went from fighting Vegeta to fighting Frieza. Wow, what a jump. It didn't help that Frieza could transform, dramatically increasing his powers and speed until he reached his final form, in his first act, casually killing Dende, a little boy of all things, just because he could heal. The guy was just was the quintessential personification of absolute power. And you know what they say about absolute power? It corrupts absolutely. Sure, Frieza did meet his end at the hands of Trunks, but still, Frieza is the benchmark for arrogant, egotistical, power-hungry madmen. I mean, it's part of why Cell was so power-hungry in the first place, because he had bits of Frieza in him. Essentially, Cell would not exist without Frieza. And so, for me, Frieza is a better villain than both Majin Buu and Cell put together. Given their powers, they could probably put together each other pretty well. So there's that. Number 2, Yami Marek. Yu-Gi-Oh! The source of my strength, frustrations, and endless jokes. Thank you, little Karibo. But it did have its fair share of villains. I mean, there have been some pretty powerful ones in the entire franchise of Yu-Gi-Oh! That's still going on today. But how do you pick one that's the most evil out of it? Why that there's really no question. A lot of other villains are motivated by certain other things like power or peace or bringing order to the world. No, Yami Marek was just a bastard. Marek was once the natural-born son of the Tomb Keepers, who were in charge of the legacy of the Pharaoh. Infuriated by his father's abuse, as well as his seemingly locked fate to stay away from the rest of the world, he manifested himself into a dark personality that killed his father. His adoptive older brother Odeon protected him by keeping him close and using his strength and influence to keep the darkness at bay. But at the Battle City tournament, when Odeon was rendered unconscious after using the fake Egyptian god card, the evil side of Marek came out, and where once was a flaky, feminesque villain with questionable motives was replaced by a psychotic madman who enjoyed nothing but inflicting pain and suffering to his opponents. Yeah, his entire deck scheme is based on torture. He didn't go for the win right away. He wanted to make his opponents suffer, chip away at their mental and spiritual strength, little by little. He tortured Mai with each monster she lost a chunk of her memory, with her mind wandering the shadow realm for all time. He wiped out Bakura's body into the shadows in their duel. He tortured Joey with electrical shocks during their duel, and even tortured poor Yugi by having him strapped up and losing his body parts as he lost life points. Young Merrick was also a masochist. He enjoyed the pain that he felt. It didn't matter to him, but he was also cunning and manipulative. Just when you think you have him on the ropes, he comes right back in your face with some more fiendish torture. He did it all with that gleeful, psychotic smile on his face. For a series about children's card games, a guy stabbing people with ancient weapons and torturing and mentally and physically torturing people during a card game was extreme. There have been a lot of villains before Yami Marek, and there are a lot of more villains after him, but none in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Will ever be as frightening or as disturbing as Yami Marek. And so we reach the final top of our list. So, what do you think is going to be number 1? I might surprise you. The number 1 greatest animated villain of all time, the white-faced one, Ushio and Tora. Now, a lot of you may not be aware of Ushio and Tora. I just read the manga, but I know there's an animated series about it. Ushio and Tora is basically Inuyasha, but better. If I mention I hate Inuyasha. Anyway, I digress. Ushio and Tora is about a young man named Ushio, who discovers a large spear in the basement beneath the shrine in his home. Pinned to the wall is a large red demon he names Tora, and after removing the spear, Tora is released as well. Even though despite their antagonistic relationship, they become a formidable fighting pair, going all over Japan, fighting demons, legendary creatures, and crazed exorcists along the way. But all of it pales in comparison to what was coming for them. You see, the spear that Ushio uses, the beast spear, was forged and created to fight one thing only. I can't remember its Japanese name, but it's translated as the white-faced one. And believe you me, the white-faced one is evil. I'm telling you the truth. He's evil. Basically, think the nine-tailed fox demon from Naruto, but white, and with a look in its eye that just makes you want to look away. This thing is an entity of pure malevolence, and I'm not talking about the same vein as the nine-tailed fox from Naruto malevolent. I'm talking about a whole nother level of malevolent. This thing feeds off fear, off hatred, misery, and suffering. Everywhere it goes, it tries to instill of it as much chaos and fear and death as it possibly can. It brought down the entire kingdom of China in one day. Damn! It just was so damn evil. Even to hide from his enemies, it embedded itself in the roots of Japan itself, and that should ever be destroyed or moved, it would bring down the entire country, killing billions of people. And Ushio's mother was the only one who could stop him by creating a barrier around it so that it wouldn't wake up too soon. But when it finally woke up, when all of Japan saw it, they all reacted in fear. And that thing gave the biggest shit-eating grin you will ever see. Seriously, the thing is nightmare fuel on steroids. The thing's is so fucking powerful. One swing of its tail could cause cyclones and tsunamis. The dandruff off of its body is strong enough to make monsters that could wipe out whole cities. It could create a wind that could wipe out the collective memories of everyone in Japan so that they would forget Ushio and Tora and not have hope. Damn! You don't get more evil than that. Yeah, compared to some of the guys on this list, the white-faced one scares me. So much so that I will often read a lot of my favorite manga, but I won't read Ushio and Tora because that thing frankly scares the fucking shit out of me. I don't even want to keep reading. That's my number one. So yes, that is my top 12 favorite villains in anime history. Like it? Don't like it? Let me know. Send me a comment, shoot me an email, send me a Twitter. If I had a Twitter, I'd give it to you. But don't worry, this is only the first one of my new videos. I will be presenting another list. My top 12 villains in American animation. Trust me, you'll like that one. So, until then, this is shintigercurl, that dude in the straw hat, saying good night and have a blast.